What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Corporate Bartender. Doing this show, I get sent a lot of books. When books stand out, it's important to bring that energy to the surface. Well, today is one of those days. This episode is all about listening. Listening is one of those things that a lot of us assume that we're good at, but really we're just winging it. We've got Oscar Trimboli on the program today. Don't know Oscar? You know the drill. We've got your back. Oscar is the best-selling author, host of the Apple Award-winning podcast Deep Listening, and a sought-after keynote speaker. Along with the Deep Listening Ambassador community, he's on a quest to create 100 million deep listeners in the workplace. This was a banger of a conversation, one of the best of 2025, and I just know you're going to dig it. So buckle up, TCBers, grab your favorite cocktail, and let's get right on into it with Oscar Trimboli on today's TCB.
Welcome to SkyTeam's The Corporate Bartender, where we gather some of the best HR and people leaders to discuss what's happening on the people side of business. Now pull up a stool, belly up to the bar, and join us for The Corporate Bartender.
Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's Corporate Bartender Day. It's your favorite day and mine. It is the 25th of June, 2025. And as I like to say, Ruby.
Don't do it.
The year is now nearly half over, which means it's almost pumpkin spice time. And it's almost Christmas yet again. This is the 225th time that we've saddled up this horse for this rodeo. And I am super excited about it because we have a guest today. His name is Oscar Trimboli, and I will tell you all about him here in a bit. But he wrote this book that I've read and I think is pretty awesome. So I'm super excited to get. Oh, did you have your book up too, Ruby? Oh yeah, there it is. How to listen. It's gonna be a good conversation, and we're gonna get into what that means. Yeah, exactly. And we're probably all gonna get busted for some bad listening habits that we have, and we don't even know. We don't even pay attention to. So that is what today is going to be all about. We do have some dark days ahead because next week is holiday week. I can't believe it. It's July, and July 4th is the holiday, and SkyTeam, we take that week. So we get a summer holiday week. So I won't be doing bartendering on that Wednesday, but we'll be back the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that. So it'll be regular, normal flow after next week. But today, my friends, today is all about Oscar. Oscar Trimboli is his name. He's a best-selling author. He's the host of an award-winning podcast called Deep Listening. This is going to resonate with Ruby. She's going to have some questions, I know. He's a keynote speaker, and he's the author of this book and two other books. He's kind of been there, done that, got the t-shirt. He's worked with a lot of the companies that you know, big Fortune 500 organizations. This book, Deep Listening, Discover the Hidden Key to Better Communication, is a pretty fantastic book. We're going to get deep into it today. I did not warn him because what fun is that? But Oscar, we like to dance the guests onto the show, so let's give Oscar a warm TCB welcome, shall we? Oh, yeah.
That's a moonwalk.
He moonwalked.
Yes. You're the winner, Oscar. A moonwalk? Come on.
I mean, for reals. Oscar, thanks for being with us today. It's good to see you.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to listening to everyone's questions.
All right. Well, we always like to start with a little bit of an origin story question. I'm curious because I imagine when you were a wee baby, this isn't what you set out to be or what you told your elementary school teacher you were going to be when you grew up. So tell us a little bit about how it started and how it's going today and how we got here.
I think zooming into a meeting that I had in April of 2008, it was an intergalactic boardroom meeting.
Ooh.
And it was a video conference between Sydney, Seattle, and Singapore. And it's the annual budget setting meeting. And there's 18 people across all these various geographies and time zones and doing unnatural things to Excel to manipulate numbers. And 20 minutes into the conversation, my vice president, she's sitting across from me in the boardroom table, my boss, my supervisor, looks me straight in the eye and said, "Oscar, we need to talk immediately after this meeting." When someone says that to you, I don't know what your response might be. Here was my response. I took out a pen and piece of paper and tried to figure out how many weeks of salary have I got left in my bank account? And who are the 5 people I need to call? And ironically, I did not listen to another word for the rest of the meeting because I was lost.
Yep.
Thinking about who I need to call. Meeting finished a little early, 20 minutes early, in fact. And as everybody left and collected their digital and analog writing equipment, I tried to escape my execution. And as I did, Tracy said, "Oscar, please close the door because what I have to say to you is very important."
Oof. It's like a double down.
So I closed the door, started walking back, and about halfway across, Tracy said, "You have no idea what you did at the 20-minute mark, do you?" And I thought, awesome, I'm getting fired and I don't even know why. I sat down. Tracy looked me straight in the eye and said, "Oscar, if you could code how you listen, you could change the world." What I heard was, "Woohoo! I still got a job." And from that point on, of April 2008, I've tried to code how to listen rather than how I listen, how the academic research supports it, how a research database of 35,000 workplace listeners support it, 3 books, jigsaw puzzle games, online assessment tools, keynotes, etc. And so that's where it started, ironically, by me not listening.
I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about that journey, right? 3 books. They're all about listening. This is your sort of anchor angle here. You do a podcast about listening. Was it that event that catalyzed this for you, or what brought listening to the fore in your world?
Look, it's quite funny because I didn't pay attention. I got this massive increase on a growth part of my business that I didn't anticipate. Typically, it was low-teen growth. Because I wasn't paying attention, I got a 32% uplift in a particular line. So I was not interested in whatever Tracy said about listening at that point in time. I had to figure out how to meet budgets, which started off on the 1st of July. And 2 weeks later, Brian, the financial controller, said to me, "Oscar, we have to distribute these budgets out. Could you come to the budget meeting and audit by listening?" It's like, "Brian, I haven't got time for this listening caper. You've obviously been talking to Tracy. I've got this massive uplift in my growth number and I have no idea how to get there." And then he said the magic words that everybody who carries a revenue quota loves to hear from the finance person. He said, "Oscar, I can't change your top line, but we can invest for growth in that part of the business." I said, "Brian, what time is the meeting and where is it?" And I sat in that meeting, not necessarily being an active contributor, just observing Brian. And I started to scribble some things down on paper. I was like, "Gee, he asked a lot of complicated questions. Gee, he asked a lot of long questions. I don't think he heard the answer. In fact, I don't even think the person understood the question he asked." And then I looked at my piece of paper and all of a sudden I realized I was starting to code how to listen. And it was at that point where I was able to observe someone else as they're speaking and listening in action, that I realize, yeah, maybe Tracy's right. Maybe there is a big gap in people's listening muscles, because most people can talk about red wine in a more nuanced and complex way than they can talk about listening. Right? They can talk about the bouquet and the origin and the body. When it comes to listening, we don't have a lot of simple frameworks for people to think about. We get told 2 ears and 1 mouth and use them in those proportions, and that's completely wrong. If you look at the neuroscience of listening, the proportions are very, very different. Or we seek to understand before being understood. That's wrong too, because, are you seeking to understand for your perspective, or are you seeking to understand to help them discover what they're actually trying to say? Because most people speaking is 9 times slower than they're thinking. So what they say the first time isn't actually what they think and mean. So how do you help them understand before you try and understand what they haven't said? So there's lots of layers to that, and that journey, and the podcast was just a sneaky way for me to talk to some of the best workplace listeners in the world, whether they're dolphin trainers or judges or hostage negotiators or deaf or blind people, about how they listen. And so it's been quite a privilege for the last 15 years to kind of go in this direction.
I love it. Listening, it's so funny. It's like asking someone if they're a good driver. If you ask somebody if they're a good listener, everybody goes, "Oh yeah, I'm a really good listener." I'm sorry, what did you say? It's hilarious to me. So the book, I want to get into.
Speaking of hilarious, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of hilarious, I think listening, comedy, and sex have a lot in common.
Oh, I can't wait to learn about that. I know sex and comedy have a lot in common, but that's the story.
Well, timing matters in all three.
That's right. It's a true story.
The use of the pause is really critical for comedians.
Laurel, he's talking right in your lane. This is good. It's good for you. I'm so glad you're here.
So 2 years ago, South by Southwest moved out of Austin and came to Australia, and I interviewed Hugh Forrest from South by Southwest 2018 about how does South by Southwest listen to such huge and diverse audiences, and it was a real privilege to hear him talk about how they spend 3 weeks as a team of 6 people going line by line through every piece of feedback, whether it's from vendors, contractors, participants, speakers, etc. And that's why South by Southwest has kind of helped Austin move from, wherever it was to, the 11th biggest city in the US. But Hugh said, "Hey, you should speak at South by Southwest on listening." I said, "Oh, how would I make it interesting?" And he said, "Well, listening, comedy, and sex have a lot in common. Why don't you talk about that?" And if you knew me as my wife does, she laughed hysterically. She's like, "That would be the last talk you did." And I took it as a personal challenge and did a lot of research on the intersection between all three, and there's more overlap than you think.
So it's a very interesting Venn diagram, I can imagine here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like in comedy, it's not about you as the comedian, it's about the audience, right? It's about their reaction and their response and how you kind of play with that, right? And, sometimes just pausing and letting the whole thing kind of explode into laughter is what is more crucial than anything else as a comedian, rather than continuing on for self-gratification. So there's a lot of overlap between comedy and listening.
Oh, you had me at pausing for the explosion. I don't know where to go
What's
from there,
happening?
really.
What's happening? Anybody want to see my cat mug?
Well, let's take this away from self-gratification and let's gratify each other, shall we? Oscar, the book, there's a framework in the book, and I want to get into what that is and how all these pieces fit together. But there's a couple of things that stood out for me that I thought were just kind of mind-blowing. One is, I think you'll agree that most people could identify with this concept, and it's the concept of tuning. Can you talk to us about tuning? What is tuning and why should we care?
Well, when it comes to listening, the dogma is pay attention to the speaker. And that's handy, but it's not the right place to start. So when we look at our database of 35,000 listeners, one of the questions we ask, what do you struggle with the most when it comes to listening? 64% of people struggle with themselves and their own state management before the conversation even starts. So listening happens before, during, and after the conversation. It's not just the dialogue. Tuning is your way to shut down the browser tabs in your own mind so you can have available working memory to process the dialogue you're about to experience. So the analogy we used is if you're in an orchestra or a band or any type of musician, as a sign of humility, as a sign of professionalism, you tune your instrument, even if you play with the same participants in the same venue with the same instrument every single time you turn up. And it's a sign of respect for you. It's a sign of respect to your fellow musicians. It's a sign of respect to a conductor in an orchestra. It's a sign of respect to the audience as well. No musician just turns up and plays. And if a musician can do that, why can't we for a workplace conversation? Because all my research is bounded by workplace conversation, so please don't try any of this with your spouse at home or anything like that. I'm not going to be responsible for any divorces. So the act of tuning is a small ritual, doesn't require a lot of time. You know, we've had clients, we've got a 90-second version and a 3-minute version. And one of the simplest ways you can tune is simply play music before you go into the conversation. That will shut down all those browser tabs really easily, because music changes the wiring of the brain very substantially and much quicker than any kind of fancy pants meditation technique that I could teach you in this time together. But just the act of, if you're going into a conversation, what can you do just to pause, just to slow down, just to notice? What can you move out so you can be available there? And as much as the tuning's interesting to me, and I wrote a lot about that, I'm curious, Eric, what does tuning mean for you?
Yeah, well,
now that you've read it.
When I read that, being a musician, it resonated, right? Like I play in a goofy little, dad rock cover band here in Colorado. And it's true. Like I would never step out on stage and strum my guitar without tuning it first, because it would be terrible. And then I would have to do all sorts of acrobatics in the moment to try to make it right on stage in front of people, where I wouldn't be paying attention to what I was actually doing because I was trying to solve another problem in parallel. So the metaphor really resonated for me. And, Ruby and I talk a lot about this. We do a workshop on feedback, and, we have a framework for giving feedback that we share with folks. And we tell them that even if you run through this framework as you walk down the hall on the way to the meeting where you're going to give that feedback, you're going to arrive 100% more prepared than if you just go in there and wing it. And so these two concepts sort of fit together in my mind. It's the giving yourself the space to get ready. Listening is is a thing that we take for granted, right? It's like breathing and talking. It's just a thing that we do. And it's not a thing that I think many of us prepare for. And so I started doing it when I read the book, like just before my meetings, you know, if I had 5 minutes between meetings, rather than just fill it with email and Slack, I started just doing the clear out the tabs ritual. Let's just get grounded. Let's let all the things that are firing in my brain right now, let's just let them out so that I'm not toting them around when I go into that conversation. And it made a difference in how I felt when I showed up in those conversations. I felt more present, more clear.
And your presence as a listener matters more than your questions, your agenda. You will change the way the speaker communicates because they will notice your presence.
Awesome. I love that. When you were setting up that answer about tuning, you said, we're told, pay attention to the speaker, and that's a thing. In the book, you have a whole chapter on paying attention versus giving attention. What's the difference between the two?
When we pay attention, it's a duty. It's like taxation. You have to do it. Right? So your state of mind is, oh, I feel obligated to pay attention.
This is like sex, right?
Probably for you, that's true, Eric. But for the rest of us mere mortals, it may not be the case. Okay.
Is Lori going to listen to this? No.
She's going to give me this look.
Look.
Look, we're going to come back to that question very shortly. Just back in a South by Southwest, we had Q&A with the audience. But with me, I do Q&A continuously, so you don't do Q&A at the end. So I was like all the way throughout. And this lady took the mic and she said, now, Oscar, I need to ask you a question about nonverbal affirmations. And when it comes to listening, Oscar, what do you do about the And I just paused and the room broke up laughing. And I just said, could you rephrase that? And she said, well, you know, when you do the yeah, say more. I was like, you're talking about listening, right? And the room just packs up laughing because everybody in the room knows what we're talking about except the person on the mic. And she's genuinely interested in the importance of this nonverbal affirmation. And I answer her question. And then we continue on and somebody sitting next to her leans over and tells her what the rest of the room heard. And then she laughs hysterically for the next 2 minutes all by herself. And as a good comedian would do, I would stop and pause and let her get it out completely. And it felt good for everybody once she'd finished. Now, back to the point about giving and paying attention. When you're listening through obligation, that's very different from giving your attention. Giving your attention is an act of curiosity. It's an act of generosity. You listen from a very different position mentally and probably physically as well when you turn up giving your attention. It's an act of generosity. Now, we can't do either all the time. There are some times where you have to pay attention and like flight where you get in the event of an emergency, you probably
we all pay attention to that, don't we?
Yeah. And when people say, oh, listening is hard, listening is difficult, they're probably coming from the pay attention kind of mindset. But when listening is light and easy, you're probably coming at it from the giving attention point of view. You want to give attention. You have to pay attention. So those two mindsets are very different. And the difference, and one of the three variables for great listeners is curiosity. So the best listeners we've interviewed are open and flexible and curious. And the difference between giving and paying attention ultimately comes down to your level of curiosity.
That makes me think about, there's a chapter in the book as well about the backstory. What is the risk of not exploring the backstory, right? Not being curious. What's at risk?
You have, in a corporate setting, an employee or a team who come to a leader and go, boss, this is the problem. What's the solution? And good boss, bad boss. Bad boss gives a solution, right? Good boss can just ask for the backstory. What have you already considered? Oh, we've considered A and B and C and a combination of A and C. All of a sudden, you have a backstory, you have a context to come into, and you feel like you're playing off the same sheet music together because you know the backstory, as opposed to you're playing completely out of tune because you come in and go, oh, here's my solution. And they go, oh, we already thought of that, boss. Right? That's a very practical and pragmatic example of the backstory. I think in corporate conversations, workplace conversations, we spend as leaders way too much time talking about the future and not enough time talking about funerals. We don't take enough time to go back to understand what needs to be honoured and brought forward and what needs to be burnt and charred and left in the past. And without knowing the backstory, you can't do that. You will not get discretionary effort from people if you haven't heard their backstory, if you haven't honoured the contribution they've made to bring the organisation to the point where this change is now possible. So the consequence of not listening to the backstory is you'll have change initiatives that are mired by inertia rather than by people who are explicitly and overtly fighting or talking about or challenging the reason for the change. Most change initiatives fail because of inertia, not because people don't believe in the future vision of what's there. And that's always not acknowledging the backstory.
I loved it. I circled this quote in the book. I'll see if I can get my camera to focus on it here.
Wasted human potential.
Wasted human potential. I was like, wow, that is big. And it's true. And if you read this chapter, it breaks that down, right? Just things that we do in our conversational shortcuts. You know, the call outs in this book, I love so much. Like there's just so many pages with a call out on it. And in the beginning of the backstory, it says, invite the speaker to explain more from behind the scenes. Because I think a lot of times in our conversations, we're not listening. We're just waiting to talk. And when that happens, we don't have the brain space to be curious. Oscar, you mentioned this phrase, working memory. Talk to us a little bit about what working memory is and why working memory as a concept makes multitasking hard, if not impossible.
Yeah. And thanks for acknowledging the call outs in the book, Eric. And for me, that's a deliberate part of design in the book. We if you look at the way the book's written, there is space to allow the reader to listen to themselves. That's a deliberate design piece in the book, as is the 3 questions at the end of every chapter, because we want listening to be something that's practiced. Just a backstory piece for this context, Eric. When do we hear from Laurie and Lindsay and from Debbie?
You can hear from them whenever you want. Do you have anything to contribute or to question, Oscar? Gang?
I was just wondering if there's a protocol.
I mean, typically we do Q&A whenever it happens. And if Laurel's here, we do it all the time, is usually the way it happens. So, but yeah, I mean, so we've talked about a several concepts so far. What's popping for you guys?
Well, usually the deep questions come from Ruby and the smartass comments come from me. But I was thinking of the difference, paying attention as a duty. I just ran through about 10 standing meetings in my mind that I'm forced to sit through at work. And giving attention, I was delighted to find myself doing it here for the past 30 minutes.
Nice.
I chose to be here. I didn't even know what the topic was because I've been a little out of the loop.
Yeah, it's all good.
But I wanted to connect. And what a great topic.
Wow.
And so how do we get our workplaces to be places where people want to give attention, where they want to be curious, where they want to be generous to that speaker instead of just showing up like it's a duty and I'll be in trouble if I don't?
I think it's a shared responsibility. I think it's shared by the host and the participants. So, Laurel, for the meetings, you feel forced, if I'm correct. That was the adjective you chose. If you were to say to the host, if you're not the host, before the meeting happened, either the day before or an hour before, what role do you see me playing in the meeting? Do you think your attention would alter in the ones you're forced to attend, or maybe get a permission slip not to attend?
Valid.
I think try it out first with the person you have the highest level of trust and the meeting has the lowest political risk for you in doing so. But this is where the responsibility is shared by the participant and the host to make the container for the conversation productive, not just for you, for everybody. See, a good meeting host gets everybody to listen to the active speaker, and a great meeting host gets everybody to listen to each other. And I think the other thing that's often missing from particularly group meetings is there's a very simple process construct that says what would make this a good conversation and go around everybody. In one sentence, what will make this a good conversation? And a really important distinction, do not ask them, what would make it a good conversation for you? We're actually not interested in what will make it a good conversation for them. We're interested in what will make it a good conversation for the collective.
Yeah.
I think hosts have much more responsibility for the process of the meeting than the content of the meeting, and they rarely think about that. And by asking this question at the beginning of the meeting, the host can orientate for the themes that are popping up at the beginning of the conversation. It also gives a good host to check-in opportunity to ensure everyone's been heard through that lens rather than merely heard through the lens of the agenda.
Yep.
Because most things in the maths and the neuroscience of listening won't be said unless the host does a great job of curating that. During one of these meetings, Laurel, that you're forced to attend, what's the question you wish the host would ask, either you or the group, to move your attention from giving, from paying to giving?
That's great. I'll give you one more quick musical example you can tie that to, because I love your tuning example. And I can play at a couple of instruments, but mostly I sing. And I'm currently, one of the groups I sing in has a full orchestra and a full choral group. So, 50 people split kind of half and half. And the rule of being a good choral member when there is a solo going on, be it an instrument solo or a vocal solo, what do? You turn and you look physically at that soloist the entire time. And it's the same thing you mentioned. It's curiosity, it's generosity, it's respect. Because that's a key part of the whole ensemble experience. But it's
Beautiful.
Yet another part in addition to tuning.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And Eric, I'm actually making a meta point here with working memory. Everybody's working memory shifted once we moved to listening to people other than Oscar. So I want to go to Debbie because I know she came off mute.
And Debbie's in a choir as well. So there's that.
Yeah. I am. And I've been thinking about this tuning thing as well. This is what's standing out to me the most. And what occurred to me is that in a performance, as an example, there are natural breaks. So there's an agenda item, it's a piece of music, and then there's a break and people celebrate that. And then you kind of have a collective breath and you move on. And it feels like in a corporate meeting, you're just powering through the agenda items. Yeah. And because there's so much noise, it's like a cacophony of stuff happening all the time, I think, in everybody's minds. I'm wondering about that, like that pause and that collective breath, and like how that could be mechanized into a meeting. Even if you've done it at the beginning, the tuning at the beginning, something that can, because your brain just goes off into, my next meeting, my next thing, what's for dinner, what's happening in the news. And you find yourself, even though you tuned at the top of the hour, you're not tuned anymore.
And again, it comes back to the role of the host and the participant. So for the host, remembering that question that we asked at the beginning, we'll make it a good conversation. You can imagine you've got a 1 hour meeting. Please never do 1 hour meetings. The reason, just do 50-minute meetings if you have to. The reason we do 50-minute meetings gives you 5 minutes to tune in at the beginning and give them 5 minutes at the back end to uncompress.
To pee.
But
yeah.
I only do 50-minute meetings with my clients. My clients always say, gee, Oscar, I love your meetings. They arrive at 5 or 10 past, depending on where they are with their admin. But they say, I have a chance to eat. I have a chance to grab a glass of water. I have a restroom break. I have all these things. yet their attention comes to my meetings very different. Like, I look forward to your meetings because I know I'm going to get that break. So back to that meeting construct where you described, Debbie, the cacophony. The host has a definite responsibility to check in regularly, and this could be either on agenda point or off agenda point. And I'll give you 2 examples of how to use it for agenda and non-agenda. For agenda, if we're closed off and we've made a decision and all of that, the host needs to do a better job of exploring what was not said. And they can simply say, if our competitors heard what we just said, what would they be laughing about that we haven't explored? So you need to bring an external point of view to the meeting, not the internal. So, or if a regulator heard what we just said, what would they be disappointed we hadn't explored? Or if another department, or if a customer, or if a supplier, or if the future came knocking on our door, what have we missed that we haven't covered in the future? Or if the past, all these external views, and it gives everybody a collective point of relaxation and ability to close off what we've just discussed and move on. For most corporate conversations, there is something significant that hasn't been said that will actually slow down the implementation. And because we're in a rush to get the next agenda item and the next meeting and the next meeting and the next day and the next, and get through the 13 weeks of the quarter, we have so much implementation debt building up that we've skipped over things because we haven't discussed it. And again, they slow down significant corporate initiatives, whatever they are. So that will be one thing to think about, is just to pose a question as a host, what haven't we discussed? This is often a beautiful, simple, and elegant way to draw people who are natural introverts into the conversation and just say, you know, Lindsay, I'm curious what you've noticed about the way we've had this conversation. So you're not asking them about their view on the content, you're just asking them the view on the group dynamics. And they often make incredibly insightful comments that help improve the system performance for the remaining time in the meeting. If as a host you don't deliberately pause by asking that question, you're just going to keep running really ineffectively off a cliff, where people are drained, lack energy, don't give discretionary effort, and you're not getting their best. And as Eric mentioned earlier, you're just missing out on a lot of human potential there. So I'm curious how that lands with you, Debbie.
I love the bringing in the third perspective as a point of pause. So when we think we're done, just rebuilding that curiosity, I think that could be really, really powerful. What I feel like that could run up against is that frenetic rush that most organizations, at least that I've been in, have to get through all the things. So the slowing down and the tolerance for the slowing down and the eye rolling that might occur with the slowing down, even if it's to prevent the going off the cliff, there's this push for just get it done, get it out the door, get it,
only to have another meeting next month to rework what we didn't discuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
So I think, again, as the host, it's like, how do you position that either before the meeting or at the start of a meeting to go, hey, I'm going to try something a little different. It's an experiment. Cut me some slack or use whatever language you'd like to use, but signal the change. practice this first in one-on-ones. Don't do it in group meetings straight away. Build muscle in one-on-ones, in high trust, low risk dialogue. And you'll build the muscle because you'll also notice when to flex in and when to flex out of that. Like, it's not a universal kind of solution to everything. I think also, if you're in group meetings, you can use this more if you're doing a full day kind of thing than the weekly. Like, I wouldn't start it on the weekly whip, you know, the 1 hour, 35-minute thing that, you know, hey,
I like the idea.
I would start it in a meeting that has a bit more give in it.
I like the idea of setting it intentionally. Ruby and I did a workshop yesterday that started with a ritual that they do to sort of ground themselves for the meeting. And Ruby, what it was making me think is, you know, if we're going to do this sort of third party perspective or any of these other sort of rituals to bring space, we could plan for those because they normalize that ritual at the beginning of, and they do it for most of their meetings. Tell everybody what that ritual was and how cool it was.
Yeah, it was almost like it wasn't quite 5 minutes. It was probably three or four, maybe 5, 3 to 5 minutes of grounding. And it was like a mini yoga class, kind of, where we were at the beginning. Any of you who have attended a yoga practice, the beginning, you're breathing, and you're starting to tune into
you're touching
your body.
Yourself because it's like sex too. It's
yeah. God.
Sorry, couldn't help it. It's on the T.
And we had a hand on heart, hand on belly, right? So we're starting to do like head, heart, body. Took deep breaths, and at the end we moved our arms eventually, and we like bended forward, and just like a stretch. So connecting, tuning to our bodies, stretching, deep breaths. It was awesome.
The CEO was in really, there. He was participating. Right. Like
and they were all, deeply present the whole time. I didn't have to give them the whole spiel of be present.
It's the first client in forever that we had no other devices interlude, right? No other devices got in the way the whole time.
Yeah.
And this was a half day thing, right? It was like we were in the room together for like 4 hours. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw 0 devices the whole time.
So, Ruby, I want to give you an opportunity to ask a question too, because deep presence is your jam, and you've got, you know, deep listening guru Oscar Trimboli here. So I want you guys to have a moment to mind meld here. What's on your mind?
My hot button really is the multitasking at meetings. And people have Slack messages coming in, their phones are buzzing, they have watches on, and they're, you know, that this is happening. There's just a lot going on for people, and it has a lot to do with their work environments. And especially when they're paying us a lot of money to come in and spend time with them and be a part of their sessions, and people are distracted. I can specifically recall a really high level meeting that I was in, and someone had done a lot of research and they were sharing their presentation to their team. Every single person in that room was doing something else. And I saw their soul crush, really. It made me so sad. And it feels like this isn't an appropriate use of the term microaggression, but it feels like little cuts or little like punching. I don't know, like we're hurting people. I feel like we're actually hurting relationships when we're doing that every single time, and we're doing it on a regular basis. And it tells me a lot about that team, right? So do I have a question? I feel like it's really, really, really important that people listen to each other in these meetings. And so I guess the question maybe is, what's the impact in your research of not listening?
I'm going to come to that shortly. What I'm curious about, though, for everybody present, hey, why don't you, Lindsay, Laurel, Debbie, in the chat, what's one thing you would recommend to Ruby in that context? Pop it in the chat. 1 sentence recommendation. And I'm just going to pause to allow everybody to be present and write that. Eric, you can also put it in there as well. So in this fast-paced environment, nobody's paying attention to the deep piece of research. What's one thing you would recommend to Ruby?
Awesome stare. I love it. Yeah, done that.
Yeah, you have done that. I've seen you do that. I'll wait, you've said.
Well, and I remember Eric not yelling at, but you really called one team out on it, and I thought it was brilliant.
I told them they were the worst.
Nature of the team.
Yeah, I told them they were the worst client at this practice ever. And I was
Wow.
I was kind of mean to him. But it did change the course of the rest of that day.
And their relationship as a team.
People put their shit away.
Yeah. Debbie, I'm not sure if you want to add anything in on the chat. One of the things that hasn't been discussed in the chat, so for those of you who can't see the chat, is to pause, set up ground rules up front, pause and stare. The leader and the host has to model the behavior. They have to walk the talk. And I've walked closer to the person who's not paying attention or touch the table where they're sitting and hang around a bit. I think implied in all these conversations is a parent-child relationship rather than an adult-to-adult relationship is one of the things I notice in the chat. The second thing I notice is what's absent. And what's absent is the role of the environment. We have much more control over the environment in which we create these set-piece meetings that you're referring to, Ruby, than we give ourselves credit for. So the easiest thing to do is to assume we're just going to rock up the meeting room, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing I would say is, does the meeting need to take place in a meeting room? The second thing, does the meeting need to take place in their location? Next thing, once you've moved into the room that you're in, what can you do with the location of the participants to each other? Do you need furniture? Do you need a table? Can you just do it standing with chairs? In that deep piece of research that was presented, could that just be printed out and that one thing be showed to everybody in the meeting? It creates an extraordinarily different environment relative to the social cues and the ways of doing business that everybody has when they turn up. I know where I sit. I know where I need to charge my device from. I'm in my little cocoon and off I go, as opposed to walk into a meeting room, there's no table and there's chairs and all the chairs are in a circle. That's a very different construct for the conversation, Fanny. Now, I know we don't have the opportunity to change all those things all the time, but be deliberate about our environment. It has more impact than we give it credit for when it comes to those team meetings. So, Ruby, I'm just curious, as you've heard the suggestions and what I've said, what's going on for you right now?
Yeah, no, I love all of that. There's it's about being really explicit about what we're asking. And we've done that, right? I mean, it just is different, but it's not, I appreciate it. I appreciate thinking about the environment in a different way.
Well, and what I think about Ruby as I was listening to him talk about that is we think about that when we're doing intentional things for things like a workshop, something that is a special event. Yeah. We don't even think about it for staff meeting. Right? I mean, like those things are embedded patterns and we just run those tapes over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I think people are in wild habits, to Debbie's point, in that sort of fast-paced environment where they're actually doing 3 days of work in one day.
Yeah.
Remember in the old days when we were able to do one thing at a time? I mean, we still can't, but
remember
it
when
takes
we
more
mailed letters?
intentionality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, I know we're
Laurel, that container we creates the listening environment. That's the reason I'm being very deliberate about the environment creates the container. Just like your presence as a host will change the way everybody dialogues compared to a frantic, frenetic, sorry, I'm running late, just been in back-to-back meetings kind of presence. There's a place and a time for each of those. I think for all of us, when we think about our working memory is finite. And when I spoke to Professor Stefan van der Sterkel from Utrecht University in the Netherlands, who's written many books on working memory and multitasking. You can multitask if the task you're working on is low impact and low consequence. If you're working with humans, that requires collaboration, that may involve conflict, that may involve competition, that may involve finite resources, you can task switch, but you will do neither task effectively, to answer Eric's original question about working memory.
Oh my God, so good. So much good stuff. Oscar, this has been fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. How do we find you out there on the worldwide interwebs if we want to learn more or we want to get the book?
Don't try and find me. Try and discover your listening. Visit listeningquiz.com, take the 20-question assessment, discover what gets in the way when it comes to your listening. And then we've got a set of tailored 3 recommendations about what you should focus on in your next workplace conversations. If you do want to connect with me, it won't be hard to find my name. There's only one guy who talks about listening and who's got my name. So thanks for listening.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you so much, Oscar, for being here today. We're going to slip into our end of show ritual. And for the folks that haven't been here in a while, I hope I picked jokes that were good enough for you today. This is what we call, Oscar, funny things, good feels, and our silly cocktail. And I always tell guests of different time zones that they are welcome to stick around. It takes about 3, maybe 4 minutes to get through. If you've got things to do and places to be, you feel free to do so. But if you want to hang out, you are welcome to hang out. Funny things. Some things on the internet are dumb and they just make me giggle. And some are just cute. And this one made me giggle and it's cute. I've never really considered the fact that crows were once babies.
Aww.
And they grow up so much uglier.
This one's for Debbie and for people who they notice things about their body. Do you ever feel like your body's check engine light has been on and you're still driving it like, nah, it'll be fine.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, she's like, what does that mean?
Yeah, really.
This one made me laugh. Would you rather be trapped in a mall for 24 hours with a silverback gorilla or 5 block mambas?
Oof.
And the guy said, well, are they like mad at me or are they just at the mall too? This one's for Oscar because it's about language and the choices that we make. Guy and man have different connotations with adjectival. I can't even say that word. Adjectival nouns. Like tree guy equals arborist, but tree man equals he lives in a tree or maybe he is a tree. I know a guy equals I have a useful contact. I know a man equals I'm about to tell you a story.
That's funny.
This one is just about relationships. My wife asked me to take a picture of her with the dog. She hasn't spoken to me in a week. It's a picture of the wife
Oh
and the
my.
dog sitting next to each other, and the wife is squatting down, and it looks like
Yeah.
it's the dog's face, and she's
Looks
having
the
a
other way.
restroom moment there. Yeah.
Yeah.
A restroom moment.
My favorite funny thing this week, I just found out my husband thought White Claws were energy drinks, and he's been drinking one on the way to work every day. Whoop, whoop.
Kinda.
Anyone tell you that you spend too much time online?
Today's Good Feel story, I didn't think it was going to make me cry, but it makes me cry every week. Go, Steve, go.
A chance encounter at a fast food restaurant changed a young man's life. Steve Hartman had.
Right.
Wow.
Great story.
And like Ruby says to every executive that we work with, everyone is watching you all the time. All the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Today's silly cocktail is called Bat Dog, and it's a riff on the Cooperstown cocktail. You're going to need a little bit of gin, 1 Major League Baseball debut, 3/4 of an ounce of Rosso vermouth, a golden retriever named Bruce, some dry vermouth. So Bruce grabs bats after batters drop them and returns them to the equipment guy. 2 dashes of orange bitters. So he's still playing AAA ball. He plays for the Rochester Red Wings, but he got called up to the Nationals for a game and a little bit of mint leaves. But come on, who's a good boy? Look at him.
Oh,
Look at him with that bat in his mouth. So cute.
See?
Oh,
Bruce.
Bruce. Bruce.
Bruce.
Oh, this has been so much fun. Thank you, Oscar, for being here with us today. Thanks to Debbie and Lindsay and Laurel for showing up. Super fun to see you. This has been great. Let's do it again next week, shall we? Let's go get some dinner. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time and learned a thing or two at today's happy hour, please share it with your friends. If you want to join our tribe, head on over to skyeteam.cloud/TCB or email us at info@skyeteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again, and remember, you've always got friends at the Corporate Bartender.